All right, folks, we're going to go back on the record. All right, Mr. Cluck, if you want to proceed with your cross-examination.
Hi, Tom, are you there? Say hello.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I think we were on comment 47.
Yep, that correct?
And I see in the first two paragraphs of your response, you responded to the comment, correct?
They are. I'm not immediately sure if the third paragraph doesn't also respond to it.
No, I'm getting to that. I just
Okay.
started with the first two.
But the first two do respond to it, yes.
Okay. So you performed a secondary analysis. Why?
Asked and answered.
It's cross-examination. Overruled. Mr. Cleveland, you may answer the question.
So I'm having a hard time hearing that. Did you say go ahead and answer the question?
Yes, you may answer the question.
Okay, thank you. Now I forgot. Oh, the question was why conduct the secondary analysis. It was not directly in response to comment 47. It was more in response to comment 48 and other comments regarding not modeling Monument Road.
Okay, let's look at 48. Is there anything about comment 48 that is not accurate?
All right, I'll read it. No, that I don't spot anything that's not accurate, that appears accurate.
So Exhibit 37 did not meet the design input assumptions of the SGHAT computer program?
I wouldn't say it that way. I don't know that I agree with that statement.
Well, then how would you say it?
I'd say this was a recommendation. It did not follow the recommendation from this guideline to the previous version of the software. This is you can see the date here, a user manual from 2013. This is referring to the precursor to the Forge Solar software.
I'm confused. Would you please explain that?
There's the Forge Solar software, which is the leading solar glare analysis software on the market today. As far as I know, it's the only one on the market today, owned by a private company that licenses the basic technology from Sandia National Laboratory. That's a national laboratory at the Department of Energy. The original tool, software tool, was referred to as a solar glare hazard analysis tool. It was developed in partnership between FAA, Federal Aviation Agency, and Sandia National Labs. I don't know the exact year, somewhere around 2011 or 2012. And it was freely available as an online web-based software tool for a number of years.
Yeah, Tommy, let me
And then
interrupt.
it ceased to exist.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I think I'm trying to figure out what version of the manual did you use for the secondary analysis? Comment 48 cites an August 23, 2013 version. Is that
Correct.
the latest? Is that the latest version?
That's the latest version for the software labeled as Solar Glare Hazard Analysis Tool. For the Forge Solar tool, they don't have a user manual. That's a separate document. They have a web-based help. They label it as help information, but it's equivalent to a user manual.
Exhibit 37. Didn't they run the solar glare hazard analysis tool?
It's not an exact accurately way to say it that way. It's often referred to that way. They ran the Forge solar tool. The software originally referred to as solar glare hazard analysis tool is no longer available.
What did you use for your report?
The Forge solar software.
And does the Forge solar software require the assumptions at attachment 5 that are quoted in comment 48?
No, it doesn't require, you refer to it as assumptions, but I think you're referring to the concept of modeling at 2 different PV array heights. But no, that's not required.
Quote, for more accuracy, the user should perform runs using minimum and maximum values for the vertex heights to bound the height of the plane containing the solar array. Did Exhibit 37 do that?
No.
Is that why you prepared the secondary analysis?
Yes, that was, well, at least that was part of why.
So Exhibit 37 didn't follow the assumptions in the software.
I disagree with that. I don't think it's fair to say it didn't follow the assumptions.
Well, then why didn't it include the information that's in your report?
I'm sorry, why didn't it, I missed the word, why didn't it what?
I mean, this is asked and answered. We've gone through this. He's answered it, the same question 5 different ways.
Overruled, but let's get to the end of this point.
I'm just trying to understand something that I don't understand.
I'd like to understand this too, because the answers don't seem to be congruent to me. So I'm going to let you proceed.
I'm glad to just try to help explain it. I consider the modeling at the 2 different heights to be a best practice, which was what how I'll read this language here from comment 48 from the old user manual is saying for most accuracy you should do this, but it's not a requirement. And the majority of glare analyses I've reviewed have not modeled at 2 different heights. It's the majority I've seen have modeled just at 1 height. And when you model at 2 different heights, you will find slightly different results, but it's always been my standard practice to model at 2 different heights. And I've never seen a situation where there was dramatically different results at the 2 different heights. Usually it's a very, within something like 10% different differences in the results of the 2 different heights.
When you reviewed Exhibit 37 to prepare your expert testimony, did you communicate with Kim Lee Horn?
The best I remember, I did not directly. I communicated with leeward representatives.
Did you provide any comments or observations about the Kim Lee Horn Exhibit 37 prior to your testimony? And when I say
yes,
provide comments, did you provide them to leeward?
I did.
And what were those comments?
Objection, client privilege.
What's the I haven't heard him implicate attorney-client privilege at
He's
this
asking, we're going into a line of different drafts and comments, which is all privileged under the rules of evidence.
That wasn't the question.
Can you give a proffer as Mr. Cluck as to what you're
Yeah, I
saying?
asked Mist if he commented on Exhibit 37 before his testimony. I didn't ask about drafts.
So your objection is overruled, but I have a careful eye on this. So if you feel it crosses the line again, I invite you to object. Mr. Cleveland, you can answer the question.
All right. Yes, I do remember providing them some comments. I don't remember all the details, but I remember some comments on some obstructions. The best I remember was that suggested that some obstructions could be where they were put in the model could be slightly better moved to more accurately reflect the existing trees. That if you move them more like to the edge of the existing trees, it will reduce the glare found, and it'd be a more accurate representation of the obstructions that are there now. I believe I probably gave additional comments. It's been too long to remember specifics.
Is that with respect to where the obstructions are located on the plans or where the obstructions are identified in the model?
What I remember in particular was where it's identified in the model. Because you'll have a large area of, for example, existing trees that's more like a two-dimensional area full of trees, and then the obstruction devices in the model are just a straight line. So you've got to pick somewhere in that trees to put a line to represent those trees. And there were cases where the line was in the trees, but if it was closer to the edge of the trees, it would more likely to represent the actual obstruction to views.
When you ran your model, did you make that change?
I did. There were a few places where I shifted slightly where the existing tree obstructions were located.
Did you disclose that in your testimony about Exhibit 37, or have you disclosed that in the report Exhibit 52?
There's a comment about it in Exhibit 52, yes, that I made some small changes to more accurately represent some of the components.
It doesn't say what those changes were, does it?
It doesn't.
Comment 49. Is there anything inaccurate about comment number 49?
I would say it's inaccurate, or I would at least disagree with the fact that this is the statement that this analysis is misleading.
In your response, you referenced sheets 71-72. Help me out. What are sheets 71 and 72?
Yeah, I guess I was using the word pages before. That'd be pages.
Okay, so sheets would be
72.
pages.
So PDF pages.
Okay, I can do the math. Now that I understand how you got to 71, that's fine. But there's no sheets, it's pages.
That's correct.
Comment number 50.
Oh, sorry, let me get back
Anything
to it.
inaccurate about number 50?
I'm reading it. I disagree with the conclusion that the applicant's statement is misleading. but the previous facts before that appeared to be generally true.
Well, then why rebut it if it's generally true? What's the rebut?
The conclusion, which was the whole point of the comment, that the statement is misleading.
And what's misleading about it if it's accurate?
I mean, it's drawing an incorrect conclusion that it's misleading. Let me see if I can explain it. I was like trying to question whether or not mitigation is practical based on a fact that doesn't determine if it's practical or not. It's a complicated topography, and they're trying to just compare two ranges of elevations, just do an overly simplistic comparison to draw a conclusion and call the statement in the report misleading. I don't view it as misleading at all. They're just trying to oversimplify the comparison beyond the appropriate level of simplification. It's a three-dimensional topography, and the fact is very true that further mitigation was not practical. I don't see anything misleading about that, but yet the comment said it was misleading.
Does the ordinance address attempts to mitigate glare?
Make sure I heard you say does the ordinance do what about mitigating glare?
Well, the ordinance says avoid glare. You're writing about mitigating glare. Why is mitigating glare relevant?
Realistically, with a fixed tilt solar array, there will be glare. If you were to say no glare is allowed, it would effectively be saying solar arrays aren't allowed. What's, I think, appropriate is to mitigate glare as much as possible with appropriate buffers. That's the approach I took in my analysis, and that's the approach I've seen taken in other jurisdictions.
Let's go to Exhibit 52.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Comment 51. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Back to comment 51 and Exhibit 51. You acknowledged you testified incorrectly. Was there did you review your testimony as an expert witness?
You said, did I? Yes, I did. When I saw this comment, I did. I mean, I had not previously gone back and reviewed the transcript, but when I saw this comment, I went back and reviewed the transcript.
Is there anything else that was inaccurate in your testimony originally?
No, not that stuck out to me, or not that I remember now. I went back with the purpose of trying to remember this particular comment that I made, that this comment 51 was talking about.
Okay. Now, Exhibit 52, I just have a couple of questions. There's a sentence in there that says 3 of the proposed buffers from the October 2023 Kimley-Horn glare study were expended to block glare for additional rows that were added to this assessment. And what were the rows that were added to the assessment?
Monument Road, Hine Road, and Jaeger Road, I think is how you pronounce it, or something similar to Jaeger.
The buffer, excuse me, I'm reading again from your report. The buffer additions will be reflected in an updated site plan and are shown in the figure below. When you say updated site plan, are you referring to January 9, 2024, or is there another one coming?
I'm referring to something newer that is coming.
In the beginning of Exhibit 52, you said the purpose was to assess the potential for the facility to create solar glare and to assess if the project could produce any concentrated glare. Isn't that what Exhibit 37 was supposed to be about?
Yes, I think so.
Does your study differ in any way from 37 other than the addition of roads and the addition of the buffer and the running of different heights?
And those are the primary ways. The other way is just small changes I made to the existing modeling of the buffers. I mentioned earlier to better reflect the actual buffers.
I believe in
And
Exhibit 37, the analysis was based on a passenger sedan vehicle. Do I have that correct?
That's correct.
Why not an SUV?
I can't speak for the author of Exhibit 37.
Is there a difference in the analysis if the user or the victim,
Oh, objection.
Sustained.
if the person who may be subject to glare is driving an SUV as opposed to a passenger sedan?
I would not, no, there would not be any significant difference. You would model a slightly higher height, a viewer height, if you wanted to model an SUV specifically, but the results would be extremely similar. And I can say that based on some other projects where I've modeled a much higher height for transfer trucks, where there was a particular concern. There was a large trucking route, and the results were very similar for the sedan height to the much higher 18-wheeler truck height.
So it wouldn't matter whether it was an 18-wheeler or an SUV or a passenger vehicle, results would be similar?
They would be similar, correct? There'd be minor differences, but they'd be very similar, especially for the sedan and the SUV. They'd be extremely similar. If you get up 5 feet higher, it's still going to be similar, but not as similar.
Lastly, you said you assessed the accuracy of the model and made small adjustments as needed, and you've already talked about one of them, such as ensuring the modeled routes accurately followed the roads. Did the Exhibit 37 modeled routes accurately follow the roads?
Yeah, they reasonably followed the roads, but I made some small improvements with when you draw the roads in. It's a series of straight lines. It's just how it works. You're limited to that in the software. It's a little short straight line, and then you make a turn, another little short straight line. So you're trying to follow a curved road with a series of little straight lines, and the software limits how many little lines you can have in a given road. So there's a balance. But I thought I made some minor improvements in how well my little line segments match the curvy road.
Did that change the results?
I didn't do a direct comparison of the two. It would, again, be an inconsequential difference, slight bit of more accuracy, but not a significant difference, nowhere close to a significant difference.
Mr. Cleveland, thank you for your time. I'm done with cross-examination.
Thank you, Mr. Cluck.
Thank you.
Mrs. Palinuk. I will ask if you want to come forward and use the microphone, only because I want to make sure that the witness can hear you.
So the proposed planting buffers. Oh, why, thank you. Obviously, you've already said that you have no idea how long they will take to mature. Do you have any idea of what type of vegetation they will be planting? What type of trees?
No, off the top of my head, I don't. I know that a planting design existed, but I was representing information I was told that it would be a 6-foot buffer, and that's all the information I needed for the modeling.
How effective is a 6-foot buffer? to mitigate the glare problem?
Let me make sure I heard you. You said, how expensive is it?
How effective
How effective?
would a 6-foot buffer be?
Oh. Well, in some locations, it's very effective. Other places, it's less effective. It depends on the line of sight from where you are to where the solar panels are. But it's, yeah, I guess it's just that. It's very effective in some locations, less effective in others, but the results show that as it grows taller, it becomes more and more effective as it blocks more and more views.
So it's fair to say people living adjacent to this will not have full effect of a buffer for some years as it grows and matures into a height that will be more useful?
I think it's not very clear. I think you're saying, is it true that they won't have a full buffer for some number of years?
Is that a possibility?
Yes, it depends on how you define full, but planting at 6 height is a 6-foot height is a fairly extensive buffer. They're large plants and large trees to plant, but it's not going to stop. It's not going to block all views of the solar panel. So that's what you're referring to. Yes, it's definitely not going to block all the views. But given the rolling hills in the area, it's not reasonable to attempt to block all the views.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hartman.
Okay, because I didn't know these diagrams as much as these other people. In what directions were the panels facing in your study?
South facing.
South, okay. Now, when you picked your observation points, did you pick them or how did you determine that?
I did not pick them. I used the same observation points that the original Kimley Horn report used.
Okay. The one I'm concerned with is the one on Hess Road. Did you use the house or the farms up there?
I'd have to go look at the map to answer that, but I can do that. Well, can I share my screen again and have you point to which or talk about? Let me know which point you're talking about.
Yes.
All right. Is that showing up for you there?
It's not coming up.
Did you use Bobby Seidel House or didn't you go by?
All right. Sorry, the question was, did I use, well, which observation? Most of them,
Okay.
the vast majority of them are on the house.
My point is, I'm lost on your map. I'll tell you that right now. But on Hess Road.
Can you go, sorry, can you go to the first page? I think you have the roads. Figure 1.
Okay. Yeah. Here's the Hess Road label. And so is this, maybe you're talking about observation point 6 or 7, maybe?
Okay, both. I'm confused. When I had, it looks like you used the farm down there, which is in a valley and isn't affected by the glare at all. Whereas if you would have used the house right up there on Hess Road, that would have been like the highest point looking down or perpendicular to it. I don't understand it. It looks like these observation points, those are in a valley. And I see no way where you'd get any glare in the valley.
Mr. Hartman, you have, this is a time to ask questions. So is there a question you want to ask about
My
those?
question is
If I could
why
ju-
they didn't use the house and they used the farms in the valley.
Just to point out,
Well,
you
wait,
modeled the road on Hess Road.
One moment. He asked a question. So.
I didn't choose these points. I used the same points that had been previously chosen in the original assessment.
Were you out to see this property at any time?
Yes, I was.
See, my point being, and I guess my question is, why would you take farms in the valley instead of the house on the road that is right up there with it, if you were out to see it?
Again, I used
Just to me makes,
Well, Mr. Hartman, he's already testified that he didn't pick these points.
yeah, well,
I mean, there are a number of the points that were chosen that are in locations that do have glare. I think that's representative of the buildings around.
when I look
Some
around-
buildings don't experience glare, some do. It makes sense to have a mixture of those chosen.
yeah, I look over here, it just seems like a lot of them are way and not where they should be. If I'd be picking points, which isn't a question, I know. If I'd be picking points, I would not have picked like point 10 over there. I think that's beyond. I wouldn't have picked 7, 8, and all those. That's my question, why they picked those.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hartman. Mr. Hoffner, I don't see you present. Mrs. Stabile is not present. Mr. and Mrs. Yob.
Pretty much the same thing, that observation point, or whatever it is, 6, that's pretty close to my house, but, you say you wouldn't have seen any glare from there, that the road drops down over 100 feet if you look at
Yeah.
the
No,
GPS map.
Observation point 6 does experience glare. That's one I remember that is one that experiences glare.
Yeah, okay, well, that's one where I keep asking you the question, can you put up a 100-foot buffer? Because I can see that entire field over there from my house. You're not going to block it with 40-foot trees. Help me out.
Right. I mean, it's not possible to move and plant a 100-foot tree, but that's more of a question for Leeward Renewables than me.
Any other questions, Mr. Yob? Okay. Mr. Osenbach, I don't see him present. Mr. Balthaser.
Mr. Cleveland, can you read the last statement from Exhibit 51, the last page, the last statement, please? Read that for us.
Sorry, on which exhibit?
Exhibit 51.
All right, that's the comments.
It's your comments at the very end there. And you say, importantly, this is the last sentence before your signature.
Well,
What page are you
all
on
right,
that
looks like I
exhibit?
got to reopen
Page
it.
11.
I apologize. When I have a lot of PDFs open, sometimes it doesn't like me scrolling too quickly.
All right, let me read it for you then.
All right.
Okay, it says, importantly, it is worthwhile to note that the glare from the proposed system is very similar to the glare of the sun setting across a lake, which is something many people seek to experience while sitting on their porch. Are you telling us that we're fortunate that we're going to be subject to all the yellow glare described in your study?
No,
is this what
that's
you're
not the
telling
point.
us?
But the point is, it's not going to be detrimental either.
At all. No detriment at all. Should we be asking for more glare? I mean, what? I mean, why is
No, that's
Mountain
not-
Trail
that's not the
Solar
point. No.
spending? What?
You have to just give him a chance to answer, Mr.
Okay, go
Balthaser.
ahead.
No, I'm not suggesting you should be asking for more glare.
Okay. Okay, why is Mountain Trail Solar spending all this money for any mitigation efforts about the glare if the glare is going to be so pleasing? as according to your comment.
All right, maybe you're misinterpreting the comment. It's not trying to say that the glare is pleasing. It's trying to say that similar glare in a different circumstance might be pleasing, that it's trying to frame the glare to show that it's glare in and of itself is not detrimental, as like some of the comments were suggesting it could be the case.
Okay. Okay, so just to be clear, is in your opinion that the glare produced by the proposed Mountain Trail Solar Farm is desirable?
No.
No. Okay. All right.
What's the objection, Mr. Gallagher?
This is argument, I mean, it's a subjective answer, desirable versus undesirable.
And
Well, he's
wh-
giving
what-
the
what-
impression in his report here that it's people are seeking this. So that would make it sound desirable to have this glare.
the objection
according
is
to this
overruled.
statement.
You-
Okay.
You can continue.
Okay, Exhibit 52, assumptions, page 63 of 63. Please read the definition for yellow glare. This is on in your analysis.
Is this in
Okay, you
A52?
said on,
Is this in A52 that you're?
This is Exhibit 52. Under the assumptions, there's a definition for yellow glare. I want like him to read that definition. It's 63 of 63.
oh, I see. Okay. Yep,
Okay.
let me get to that page.
Okay. Should I
All right,
read it for
almost
you?
there. All right.
Yellow glare is
All right.
glare with the potential to cause an after image, quotes, flash blindness when observed prior to a typical blink response. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, it means that if you look at this glare, you may see that shape for a moment before you blink.
Okay. so-
I think we've all experienced that. Like you look at a bright light and you look away from it and you still see that shape for a split second.
Okay. Please define the term flash blindness.
Yeah, I think it is describing it here. It's a situation where you may see an after image like I just described.
Okay.
That's the way it's used here. It puts it in parentheses, like saying that's an alternative word for the same thing.
Okay. All right. From my exhibit, Mr. B-2, and this was from the references that were provided in Exhibit 37. It came from one of those references. That's what the exhibit, Mr. B-2. Flash blindness is defined as a temporary disability or distraction that can cause an after image and is understood to be comparable to what a human experiences when viewing the flash of a camera. So flash blindness, from that definition, flash blindness is a temporary disability or distraction comparable to what a human experiences from flash of a camera. A flash is a sudden event that occurs quickly and then is gone. So yellow glare is not something I could stare at for even a second or two because I will be at risk for flash blindness that occurs faster than the blink of an eye. Is this statement correct, according to this definition?
I mean, I don't know. That was a lot. You said they're very fast. Yeah, if you look, you could look at it and you could look at it for more than a second. But if you looked away, you would experience, or you might experience, it says it's, in the yellow region, there's a chance you'll experience an after image. And like earlier, the yellow glare that exists here is close to the border with the green glare. But I'm not sure exactly which part of that definition you're asking me about.
Well, I'm just asking you about yellow glare and the effect that it's going to have on the human eye. I mean, this definition says that I can't look at this for a second. I can't look at it long enough to blink my eyes and I'm not going to see an after image the same way that I have a flash from a camera.
What's the objection?
I'm trying to get a clarification from him because he's telling me that there is no effect from this yellow glare, yet we have definitions in here in his testimony that describes this yellow glare as being something more than just benign. That's what I'm trying to get a clarification on this.
I think he's confirmed that.
Okay.
So I'm going to overrule the objection, but if you want to, if you want to, wrap up this point and move on to your next one.
We'll move on. Have you personally experienced glare from the sun on a clear day when you were stopped at a red traffic light and the sun was in very close proximity to the traffic light? Have you ever experienced that?
I have,
The
yes.
sun is right there, okay? Do you have difficult time seeing which color light was displayed on the traffic light during that situation?
That has happened to me before, yes. It's difficult.
Okay, were you able to stare at the traffic light continuously with the sun in your field of vision until it turned green?
No, I don't. No, but I didn't have to be aware of when it changed colors. But no, I wasn't able to stare at it.
You were or you were not able to stare at it?
I was not able to stare at it.
Okay. How did you cope with the bright glare of the sun directly around the traffic light?
Yeah, block the sun where I can with my hand or a visor, and look adjacent to it and look at it, look away to wait and see the color change.
Okay, so you're looking away, you're using your hand, you're using a visor, using sunglasses.
What's the basis of the objection?
He's asking you to hypothesize over a series of facts that you maybe never experienced, but is relevant.
But he's testified that he has experienced them, and the nature of expert testimony requires hypothesizing. So the objection is overruled.
All right, on April 8th, I went to see the total eclipse of the sun. Okay, well, what does that have to do with it? What warning was given about looking directly into the sun with sunglasses at any time before totality? And
Was that a question? What was the warning?
yeah,
To
with
look
the
directly
total
at the sun.
eclipse of the sun, were you given any? What was the warnings that was given to people about looking into the sun when the eclipse was there? Were you told that you could use sunglasses and look directly into the sun at any time? Do you recall any of that?
Yeah, the recommendation is to not look directly at the sun, even with sunglasses.
Right, for even a couple seconds, right?
Right.
Because of retinal damage, correct? Possible retinal
Yeah,
damage?
for some kind of eye damage.
Okay. So, anyway, get back to the traffic light. What's the typical height of a traffic light?
I mean, I could make an estimate, but I don't know.
What would you say, 15 feet? You mean tractor trailer's 13 and a half feet? I'm going to get relevance to this.
Yeah, 15 or 20.
Right. It's at a fairly steep angle, okay? What's the height of the source of the yellow glare quoted in your report on Exhibit 52, page 3 of your report under background?
I don't know. I'll have to go look and see what you're referring to.
Okay, Exhibit 52, page 3 of your report under background. It's the last sentence there on the above the figure 1.
Above figure. My page numbers now aren't showing up
All right, well,
correctly. Maybe you can read it for me. I'll reopen this again. Sorry, I'm having trouble with these PDFs.
yeah, just look for figure 1.
Okay.
Okay, it's right above figure 1. And I'll read it for you. Additionally, as explained below, in addition to the forged solar analysis, the PV array modeled at a height of 5 feet, like the original report. So when we have, looking at yellow glare that is projected on your analysis, this yellow glare, the source of this yellow glare is 5 feet off the ground. Is that correct?
Yes, in some situations, that's right.
Okay, so if we had this problem with the traffic light that we're pull their hands up and we can't look directly at the light. At 15 feet in the air, how is this glare going to be when it's 5 feet in the air? And this is just off your hood. How are you going to cope with that? And how are you going to drive down the road with this constant source of glare for thousands of feet in this development? How is this possible? And how is this not detrimental to driving?
What's the basis?
Just ask like 13 questions.
So compound question. You have to break that down into.
All right.
He can't answer. He can't. So the objection is sustained. He can't answer 13 questions at the same time.
Okay. First question then is, the source of the glare is going to be at 5 feet height.
Yeah, from relative to the ground, right
Relative
under
to
the
the ground.
panel, yes.
Okay.
And higher.
Okay. And is it possible it could even be a little bit lower than that, depending on the terrain and how you're driving?
Yep. Marginally lower, maybe in a few locations, but generally not lower than that.
Okay. So if this glare is now at 5 feet, and you also mentioned that it's several sizes larger than the sun itself, how are we going to view pedestrians that are walking along the road? If you had trouble at 15 feet.
You have to ask one question at a time.
Okay. I'm sorry, I get carried away.
It's okay. I can appreciate passion.
All right. The question is, how are we going to be able to see clearly see pedestrians if this source of this glare is 5 feet off the ground, when a typical pedestrian's head might be at 5 feet, and the sun is larger than that? And again, getting back to, go ahead, answer that question, please.
Yeah. Well, that your 5 foot assumption there is if you're at this, the viewer's at the same height as the panels. Basically, you're both 5 feet off the ground, and there's probably a few locations where that happens. But given with the hills here, often you're going to be looking slightly upward or slightly downward to the panels. So it's not like because the panels are 5 feet off the ground that it's at the ground you're on is the same height as the ground where the panel is. And if that's the case when the glare is down low at the ground like that, that's the exact scenario where the buffers are very effective. If you have a 6 foot tall or higher buffer, that glare is going to be blocked. And the proposed plan is to put 6 foot high buffers everywhere that situation would exist, because that's where a buffer is effective.
But your buffer is built into this analysis already. All of your analysis includes a 6 foot buffer where you outlined it on your
That's right.
plans. That is correct?
That's right.
So how is that going to change anything? It's built in already.
Oh, it is, I agree, but it's going to mean that the situation that you were describing is not going to be a situation where glare exists, where you've got glare visible behind a pedestrian. If there's a pedestrian there, I think in every case that would mean they're at the height that it would be that there would be buffer to block the view of the solar panel at the same height in the background. So the places where glare is going to exist, it's not going to be in the scenario you're proposing. So that's one part of the answer to the question. The other part is you're comparing like apples and grapefruits when you're talking about the experience of looking directly at the sun versus the experience of the reflection coming off the panels, which is why I'm showing on my screen this figure 3 from Exhibit 52. This puts that in perspective. The intensity, which is the y-axis, the vertical part of this graph here, is showing the yellow sun there at the top. And then every line you go down is a factor of 10 less. So that's 1/10 the intensity about where my cursor is, and then it's 1/100th the intensity here, and down here is 1/1000th of the intensity of looking directly at the sun. So your comparison is 1 to 1/1000th. It's a very misleading, inaccurate comparison.
But isn't the sun that's shown on there the sun at high noon? That little dot up there at 10 to the 1? Doesn't the
It's
sun
labeled as direct
fade?
viewing
It
of the
fades
sun.
throughout the day, and when you get to sunset, it's going to be a lot dimmer. Isn't it going to be moving down on that scale, down toward the orange dots?
There's probably some truth to what you're saying. They haven't well documented the location here, but the sun is slightly more intense vertical than lower in the sky. It goes through more, the sun rays pass through more atmosphere when it's closer to sunrise or sunset, but it's still, I don't know, roughly like 70% as intense down near the horizon as it is at its peak in the middle of the day. So it is, you're correct, it is lower, but it's not dramatically lower. It's not even half of, no less than half of peak intensity.
But it's still yellow glare. And getting back to
Correct,
the
but
definition,
again,
it's
to
still
come down
risking.
a factor of 2, we're talking about, to use your terminology, this is the sun here at solar noon, closer to the horizon, down lower in the day. It shifts down to where my cursor is. I mean, it's a slight shift down, but it's getting nowhere close to the intensity of the glare that off of the reflected off the glass.
I'll wholeheartedly disagree with that. But anyway, the fact is that it's still yellow glare that still has a potential for flash blindness. I still will not be able to, if it's yellow glare, doesn't matter if it's down on the line at the green glare.
Same objection. No question being asked.
You'll have an opportunity to argue that in your closing argument, but I
Okay.
think, so the objection will be sustained.
Okay. Exhibit 52, page 14. Please read the third last sentence in the second paragraph.
My page numbers aren't showing up. Let's see which page are you on? What does it say at the top?
Let's see. This would be on the same page as figure 10.
Okay. All right, I got the right page, which,
All right, so
Where-
the second paragraph. I'll say the third sentence that starts with specifically, a pilot's ability.
okay. Yep, specifically, a pilot's ability to fly was only potentially impaired during final approach when glare was experienced from straight ahead and lasted for more than 5 seconds.
Right, so if glare exceeds 5 seconds, the pilot has a potential to be impaired. That's what that statement says.
If it's straight ahead and it lasts for more than 5 seconds.
Right. So the glare that we described at 5 feet off the ground is straight ahead. And the glare on the roads that you describe is more than 5 seconds. If you read on
Yep,
your
correct.
comment on 51, page 10, the third sentence. Let's see, we're on 14. Now we're going to go down to 10. Anyway, I'll read this for you rather than waste the time on it. The length of time the driver is susceptible to the glare is under 60 seconds while traveling on roads, which is less time than the impacts from the existing sun during the same time of the day. So now you're saying in that statement that you're going to be impacted of up to 60 seconds of glare Yet, on the other statement that was made here, you're saying that there is a potential for impairment with more than 5 seconds of exposure. So how do you explain that we have no exposure to glare, we have no negative impact to glare, when the FAA is saying after 5 seconds there's a problem, and now we're going to be subjected to glare that is lasting 60 seconds?
All right, you need to let him answer now.
Excuse me?
You need to let him answer now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. That's the comment here from the FAA. You can see the footnote was from a 2015 evaluation they did when they had very little experience with glare from solar arrays, and they were just thinking about the potential, and they were kind of thinking about a worst case and trying to narrow in on, well, what are the scenarios where we think there might be an impact? And they said, well, in order for there possibly to be an impact, it'd have to be straight ahead and it'd have to last longer than 5 seconds. And we think maybe there's a chance for an impact in that arrangement. But then in 2021, the FAA published a final order. This 2015 document was a evaluation, and then in 2021 they published official FAA policy on solar glare from solar facilities, and that policy says, I think I may have the quote in this report, but I couldn't find it real quickly. But the policy says that after years of experience of pilots flying around and landing right in the vicinity of solar arrays, including there's a number of large solar systems right on large international airports, FAA has said there's not a hazard such that we're going to have no restrictions to creating yellow or green glare for pilots that are landing. It's said, you can put solar right on an airport and don't need to think about whether or not it creates glare for pilots or not, because it's not considered hazardous for pilots. And that's as large of a solar system as you want to put right next to the runway, saying no worries. There's no restrictions to doing that. So that's what I say. This was some of their original thoughts. There's a possibility there may be an impact here, but after years of experience, they've learned no. In real life, it's just not a problem.
So why is that statement included in your report?
I think here else to give the background, to say that they've been basically looking at this for a while. They narrowed it in to say the only time it might have an impact is when they're landing and when it's right in front of them and when it lasts for 5 seconds. Just to give that background, to say they thought there was some chance it have enough impact that we might matter.
So it's still a valid statement.
Sorry, what was that?
So this is still a valid statement about 5 seconds of glare exposure is potential to cause an impact, a visual impact.
To some degree, yes, but this was looking at a pilot as they're landing a plane, which I imagine there's not many pilots in the room. I'm not a pilot, but I understand that landing a plane's a lot more difficult than driving a car. And when you're driving a car, you've got the ability to slow down. You don't have that ability when you're flying a plane.
Okay, we're going to move on. So we have plenty of roads where we're going to exceed that 5 seconds for pilot impairment. When I look at Monument Road, you included that in the new analysis. That was not included in the old analysis. How many feet of yellow glare do we have on Monument Road? How many feet of Monument Road is exposed to yellow glare?
Yeah, I don't know the footage. It's I know graphically roughly where it is. I can go back to this figure 1. Oh, except it's not going to show up. But it's basically the area or the length of the road along the edge of the array. It's roughly, you know, the portion of the road here that's right beside the array, if I'm remembering correctly from the results. It is in the appendix. You could dig through the appendices and find it.
If we look at Exhibit 52, page 36 of 63.
All right, I guess that's Appendix A,
It's in Appendix A,
32.
36 of 63. Your positions along path receiving glare. No, 36 of 63.
Oh, 36, sorry.
Yes.
Good. I didn't assume that wasn't the right.
That's it right there.
Okay. Well, shoot, I tried to zoom in and now it's not happy. I got it here right beside me. I can just reopen it. Should have looked to see which page number that was.
I'm not sure.
All right, sorry about that. I'm here now.
Yeah. So I tried to triangulate that and
I thought I could zoom in and that.
yeah.
Okay, here we go. I won't touch it again. Sorry about that.
All right, I tried to triangulate that and I came up with approximately 2,000 feet of yellow glare exposure on that road.
Yeah, I mean, I could believe it's in that ballpark. Just
Okay.
eyeball on it real quick.
All right. At 40 miles an hour, that would be a minimum of 34 seconds of exposure to the yellow glare if you were traveling on that road during the times that are listed, shown up there above that in the daily duration of the glare. And you can see that's predominantly yellow glare there. Up to how many minutes a day there? Are we going to experience yellow glare on Monument Road?
It looks like up to 50 minutes.
50 minutes, so a better part of an hour that we're going to be seeing yellow glare on that road. You didn't challenge any of my data in support of Table 1 and my supporting data in Exhibit Mr. B-1. So I assume that you agreed with my assumptions there. Gruber Road, we had 1,300 feet of continuous yellow glare. 35 miles an hour, that would be 25 seconds of exposure. On Blau Road, we have 3,900 feet of continuous yellow glare at 35 miles an hour. That would be a minimum of 76 seconds if you're driving at speed limit. I'm referencing my supporting data in Mr. B-1, Table 1 of supporting data. I'm not sure what page that is. There's only several pages there. But I had calculated the amount of road footage for yellow that has yellow glare based on these same charts that we just looked at here, the positions along the path receiving glare. Okay.
All right, yeah, it crashed on me. I can reopen it.
Yeah, it's Mr.
This was
B-1.
Mr. B-1, correct?
Yes. Right, there's the chart.
Okay.
Right there, I put a chart there to show the extent of the yellow glare the footage of yellow glare on the roads. I use Google Maps. It's an approximation, but the numbers are fairly close. But just to show, to demonstrate the length of time that motorists are going to be exposed to yellow glare on these roads. And so what I did here was look at McBlow Road is the first one that's highlighted in yellow, 3,900 feet at 35 miles an hour, 51 feet per second. That's 76 seconds if you're driving speed limit that you'll be exposed to yellow glare at any time that yellow glare is present on that road. So that's 76 seconds. Gruber Road is 1,300 feet of continuous yellow glare at 35 miles an hour. That's 25 seconds that you'll be exposed if you're driving Gruber Road at the times that yellow glare is present. Hess Road, 1,500 feet of continuous yellow glare at 35 miles an hour is 29 seconds.
Mr. Balthaser, is there a question for the witness?
Well, I'm just reiterating. He didn't question this, and we didn't go over the amount of seconds. But
Mr. Cleveland,
we can move on.
You didn't dispute this data in Exhibit 51, correct?
That is correct.
Well, I'm asking Mr. Cleveland.
Yeah, I had a hard time. You said, do I dispute?
You did not dispute
table?
this data that Mr. Balthaser's presented in Exhibit 51, correct?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing y'all. Are you asking, what about this table, data in table 51, or just table 1?
You have not disputed this data, correct?
I have access to this data. Sorry, I'm still not hearing it. I feel like somehow the microphone has changed just recently, and it sounds like it's saturating and it's getting distorted.
Okay.
Your microphone.
You have not disputed this data.
Oh, that's clear. That's better. No, I've not disputed this data.
And you're not disputing the conclusions that have been raised by Mr. Balthaser based on this data.
Which conclusions are you referring to?
The conclusions on Table 1 and Exhibit Mr. B-1.
And I'm not disputing the analysis here in Table 1. That's correct.
Okay. You want to move on?
I'm not saying I don't remember what conclusions that came from this.
Okay. All right, we're moving on. Okay, you did not add any, we had this discussion previously, you said you did not add any single observation points.
That's right.
Okay, but you did mention that you created this second report to address all the concerns that the objectors had and the objector testimony there, but you didn't add a single point. Why did you not add 485 Sunday Road as an observation point?
Yeah, because I felt like it was reasonable to not select every building in the vicinity, and that the original 14 observation points were a reasonable representation of the buildings around.
Okay. Well, this is the home of Mr. and Mrs. Yob, and they're objectors to this application. Mr. Yob spoke here just a couple minutes ago. And he's expressed grave concerns in testimony and comments about glare impacts to their home and yard. Who made the decision?
Same objection before. He's asking the question.
Okay, we're asking a question. Who made the decision not to include their property in the glare study after they've made these comments that they're extremely concerned about that?
I guess it was my assessment. I guess you'd say I did. It didn't. Yeah, I don't have a good answer. It was me. Yeah, it didn't. Wasn't a concern that I addressed in the comments or in the reanalysis. I guess I kept it simple to not model every house in the
Okay,
area and left it to the representative ones that were there.
okay. What's the address of observation point 12? That's
Yeah, I don't
on the
know.
north end of Klaus Road, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know. I can show you where it is on the map, but I don't know what the address is.
Okay. Well, the point is, it's at the north end of Klaus Road. Klaus Road has 37 hours of yellow glare and 66 hours of green glare, yet this point has no glare reported. And there's glare, from what I can find out from the points that were made there, it's right next to the road where there's lots of glare. So why is there no glare at the home? It would be number 12 there.
And you said there is glare in that section of
There's the glare on
road?
that section of Klaus Road, but at that house there's no yellow or green glare. There's 37 hours of yellow glare and 66 hours of green glare, and both Exhibit 37 and your solar glare analysis agree that there's no glare at that point. So how can that be possible? These homes are barely 100 feet off the road. How is it possible there's no glare there at this observation point?
It must be that, I mean, that's what the software is calculating. I'm trying to imagine what the solution or why that might be. I don't know, that surprises me somewhat. Without looking into it deeper, I'm not sure, but it does not make me question the results. But yeah, I'm not sure why that's the case. Is this the section of Klaus
Yes,
Road, do you
that's the
think,
section,
that
yes.
you're referring to? I think it is.
Yes, that's the
You can
section.
see my,
And it's at the uppermost section there of the yellow, but
Yeah.
it's showing a curve in the road there, a sharp curve in the road.
yeah,
And if you look at the regular map, you'll see where this DOP is. You can see that it's well before that curve. The curve there is just to the right of OP 13. And
I don't know.
I don't think we have that residence
Look at the
here.
elevations. I don't know why that's the case.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
It is it's a little surprising, but it's, I'm confident that the model is doing what it's running the right physics that it's supposed to do. It's been a tested and proven model that's regularly gets reviews and updates. So I've got confidence in the model, but without really digging in real deep, it's a little surprising of a finding, but I'm confident that it's correct.
Okay, a couple more points here. Exhibit 51, page 10, you state, the yellow glare with the planted vegetation at the initial planting height is only a few minutes a day near sunrise and sunset. And on page 36 of 63 on Exhibit 52, what is the range of duration of glare between April and the end of August? So that's 36 of 63.
All right.
I think we looked at this already on Monument Road.
Yeah, I think we already said it was
Right.
close to 50 minutes.
50 minutes. So that, I mean, characterizing that as only a few minutes a day, I mean, I would expect a few minutes a day to be, 4 or 5 minutes. Why are you saying few minutes a day when it's actually up to 50 minutes a day? What's your explanation for that?
The Monument Road there is the one exception that has that long of time period. So I may have been you can argue I may have overstated that, but I think in general it is a reasonable classification of when the glare exists. In the majority of cases, it is 15 minutes or less.
Well, let's look at 22
There
of
are
63.
there are definitely a few that are 30 minutes to 50 minutes.
Yeah. Let's look at 22 of 63, Klaus Road on Exhibit 52.
All right. I'm going
The
to try
minutes of glare
closing some of
for,
these, so
April
maybe
to
this won't
May.
keep crashing on me. Then I'll try and I'll open it again.
Mr. Balthaser, I think you're starting to verge on the point of being of what we call cumulative evidence, because I think that you hit these points a couple of times. So I'm going to encourage you to move on to something new.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make the point, I have a couple more where, we're talking a few minutes a day, and we're looking on the charts are showing 40, 50, 25, 30 minutes a day.
And some of this would be more appropriate for your closing argument.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm scrolling through a number, and these are all 10 to 15 minutes a day, including both green and yellow. But maybe you asked me for a certain page before my PDF crashed. I'm not sure. Here's one that peaks at about 25 minutes.
Right.
Then we're back to Monument Road.
Right. No further questions?
Thank you. Mrs. Balthaser?
Okay, as far as the glare points that, were modeled, was there a scientific way of how you got to those points, or was it random? I mean, how are those points selected?
These are the observation points?
Yes, the
Those at the
observation
homes?
points that were tested.
Yep. I just used the same points that were used in the previous analysis, and I don't know the history of how they were originally selected.
Okay, so you don't know.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. As far as Exhibit 37, that was prepared by whom?
Kimley Horn, which is a engineering firm.
And Exhibit 52 was prepared by whom?
That was prepared by me, Tommy Cleveland.
And that is what I saw. And to me, you have a document that's 250 some pages created by Kimberly Horn, and basically the same document with lots of changes now created by you. I'm not understanding how you have two very similar documents, that one was created by an engineering firm and the second set, number 52, created by you.
I'm not sure of the question.
Do you want to rephrase the question?
Exhibit 37, you said, was written by Kimberly Horn. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And number 52, 253 pages, was written by you?
That's correct.
Okay. You kept mentioning about a buffer, 6 feet to 40 feet. And when we talked about, a pedestrian with glare, you said that the buffer would take care of that. Is this going to be a solid buffer?
Yeah, it's going to be trees such that it's intended to be opaque, yes. Such that, yeah, solid, not in terms like a brick wall solid, but trees that are touching each other, making a continuous buffer. That's my understanding of what's being proposed.
So continuous buffer that there's no glare going to get through at 6 feet.
That's right. That's how it's modeled, and that's my understanding of what they're proposing to plant.
Okay. And did I understand correctly that between Exhibit 37 and Exhibit 52, a totally new glare modeling tool was used?
No, the exact same software was used.
I thought Forge Solar was used for the second set and something else was used for 37.
No, Ford Solar was used for both the original 37, Exhibit 37, and for my Exhibit 52.
Okay, so just then the 13-foot analysis was missed on 37? Is that what they did not do?
maybe that's fair to say. If they did not do a 13-foot analysis, they also included fewer roads and less road footage. That was, in my mind, that was the bigger difference, was that they included fewer roads.
Okay, but it was the same modeling tool. Okay, I think I misunderstood that then. Several people in this room live on Blyle Road, and I know there's been commentary, repeatedly about Blyle Road. There's two points that were, glare that were reviewed on opposite ends of Blyle Road. Is there a reason why there were no modeling points in between? I mean, one on extreme ends of Blyle Road. It's a pretty long, straight road.
I can only speak for my assessment, and like I said several times previously, I just made the simple decision to reuse the same observation points that were used previously for the Kimley Horn assessment, and I don't know the source of or how they made their decisions for which points to include.
There's also a repeated statement about there is no red glare, and I just questioned why that is said over and over again when we've established already that the sun itself is not red glare. So why keep bringing that up, that this glare is not red glare?
Because of the reference to concentrated glare and the concentrated solar radiation and glare in the local ordinance, basically to make the point that if it was concentrated, that would be referenced as red glare, and this tool classifies glare as green, red, or yellow. So it's a way to say this tool is showing you there's no concentrated glare and nothing close to concentrated glare.
But again, so we're saying the sun is not concentrated glare then either, since it is not red glare.
Sustained.
Okay, you also mentioned about that we would have double glare, or did I understand correctly that we're going to have double glare? Because I believe you had mentioned that we're only going to see glare when we're seeing the sun is going to cause the glare. So is that a true statement, that we're going to see sun glare at the same time we're getting glare off of the panels?
Yes, that's correct.
And did you also mention that the sun glare is more pinpointed, whereas the glare off the panels is going to be more widespread?
Yes, there's a variety of sizes. That's what this shows from this figure 3 shows. So in most cases, the glare from the panels would be bigger than the small point from the sun. But in some cases, it would be the glare would be smaller than the sun, which is what this shows. Kind of points to the left. If you go straight down from the sun here in figure 3, points to the left would be points of glare smaller than the sun, and to the right would be bigger than the sun. So most of the glare would appear bigger than the point of sun in the sky, but not in every case.
And did I also hear correctly that all of these solar panels are going to be aimed in one direction?
That's right. They're all aimed south and all tilted the same angle.
And is that customary to do that?
It is. That's the traditional way of building a ground mounted solar facility. There's also the alternative is referred to as a single axis tracker, where the panels slowly rotate all day. They start out facing east and slowly follow the sun across the day to end up facing west. So those are the two options, either a tracker or a fixed tilt facing south.
And have you walked at a solar farm, that was fully established during sunrise or sunset to see what the actual glare coming off of it is?
I've been in a lot of solar farms, including around, I don't know if I've ever been there at sunrise, but around sunset. And I've only And I've tried to actually find angles where I can experience that, and I've only been able to experience it off of a small number of panels. So I've experienced it off a very small number of panels at once, but I've yet to experience it off of a larger group of panels. So I've experienced it to a small degree, but not fully.
So if you're saying it's customary to have solar panels directed in one direction, is there a reason why a solar farm would have panels tilted away from houses in certain instances?
If it was a tracking system, like I was describing a moment ago, they're meant to track the sun, but sometimes they'll malfunction, especially when they're first getting set up. And I don't know what you're referring to. If you're referring to seeing an array where you've got panels facing different directions, every time I've seen that, it's because some of their trackers are not working correctly at the moment. I've never heard of a situation where they had fixed stationary panels facing different directions.
Well, are you aware of there's a solar farm in Lyons, Pennsylvania, that's not too far from here? Are you familiar with that solar farm?
I'm not, no.
Because that solar farm, there's 3 houses along the one side, and those panels are, like you said, they're all facing one direction, except for when you get close to the houses, they're faced away from the houses. And I was just wondering if you knew why that might be.
Yeah, I'm not totally clear on what you're describing, but no, I'm not sure what that would be. I would not think it has anything to do with the houses.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Cleveland, you have proven to be a very popular witness here yet again. Our next hearing is scheduled for May 29th, and I fear that we may not conclude with your testimony this evening. Are you available on May 29th at 6:00 p.m.?
I think that date worked. Let me double check it. You said May 29th?
May 29th at 6 p.m.
Yes. Yep, I'm available then.
Okay. I presume, Mr. Gallagher, you'll have redirect?
Yeah, but I mean, it's very limited. I would prefer.
Well, we're not done with pro se, because Ms. Fowler, I have not forgotten about you. But I assume that you have more than just a few questions?
I can make them quick.
Okay. Then, Ms. Fowler, why don't you proceed? I just wanted to make sure that if we do need to cut this off, that Mr. Cleveland is available later. And just to be clear, I'm not trying to rush you. I want to make sure you have the time that you need.
Yeah, I understand. Mr. Cleveland, my first question is, who is Leeward Renewables?
That's the developer of this project, the Mountain Trail Solar Project.
Can I have the full legal name?
I'm going to sustain that. I don't know that this is the witness to be asking that question. You're flipping through the pages, so I assume you're going to show us something.
Yeah, on page 3 of the PDF, it says, at the request of Leeward Renewables, I prepared the following analysis. So I'm just curious who Leeward Renewables is, what their legal name is.
I'm not sure their exact legal name. I know them as Leeward Renewables.
Okay, you mentioned that you spoke to someone at Leeward Renewables. Who did you speak to?
Yeah, I've talked to several different people there. Horatio and Colin have been my primary contacts there.
Okay, I assume you've been paid to do this study. I don't want to know the amount, but I just want to know who wrote the check.
What's the objection?
Yes, he's being paid, but it's irrelevant.
Well, I think that she's trying to identify who his client is, and I think that is relevant. So I will overrule the objection.
The question was, who wrote the check to you for this study to pay you for your services?
Leeward Renewables is I guess my client, is who will pay for the report.
So you have not been paid yet?
No.
Okay. You say it on the same page that it was to assess the potential for the facility to create solar glare and to assess if the project could produce any concentrated glare. Is this study made to check to see if there's any concentrated glare mainly?
Sorry, did you say mainly at the end? Was that mainly why it was done?
Yes.
No, I don't think that's accurate. It was clear to me that there's no concentrated glare based on just the panel technology being used.
All right, on the third paragraph on the same page, you said, my independent solar glare analysis started with an export of the Forge solar model provided by Kimley Horn. How can you consider your analysis independent if you're using someone else's data?
I started with their data, but then I reviewed it and adjusted it. I had total freedom to do that. So I then took over control of the data and I ran the model myself.
All right, on page 7 of the PDF, I don't know if you can pull that up for yourself.
This is of my report, Exhibit 52?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I think I've got page 7.
It's under the section called Modeling the Solar Facility in the Glare Analysis Software.
Yep, I'm in the right place.
Just give me 1 second here. Where you mentioned that you used the conditional use plan site plan from January 9th of 2024. You say showing the layout of each row of PV panels in each array area, and that you use satellite image and Ford solar image in the conditional use plan site plan were aligned. These figures confirm that the array areas modeled in Ford solar include all of the planned PV panel locations. Do you mean individual panels, or do you mean individual, like the array sections? It's in the last paragraph.
Yeah, I'm not sure which part of that. I thought the sentence was clear. It's saying the array areas that were modeled in the software, it confirms that those areas accurately reflect where the actual PV panels are planned to be installed. So in other words, no PV panels will be installed outside of those PV array areas that are modeled in the software.
So you modeled every single panel that will be used for this project?
Not at each panel. The software is not set up that way. You just select an array area. Software assumes that entire array area is full of solar panels.
So then why did you say that you included all of the planned PV panel locations?
I thought what I just described to say that all the planned PV panel locations fall inside of that polygon, that area that I put into the Ford Solar model. Every location for a PV panel falls inside of those areas.
All right, moving on to my next question. On PDF page 12, you mentioned that you used 35 feet for existing trees. Why did you use that number?
That was the height from the previous study, and I know that they came up with that estimate looking at the trees, and I looked at some satellite images as well and thought that 35 feet seemed like a accurate estimate for the height of the existing trees. So it was our best estimate for the height of the trees.
Okay. Moving on to PDF page 13, this is the one where you show the original Kimley Horn glare study images on the left for Belial Road, Gruber Road, and Old Route 22, and then on the right, you show the sections highlighted in red where the buffers changed. Could you please pull that up?
Yep, I'll share. I've got it up. I'll share my screen again.
All right, starting with the first block there for your report, you highlight a section along Monument Road. What made you decide to add that buffer section?
When I added the Monument Road route, which is right here along the western edge of this section and where my mouth is going, it meant that there was, originally there was significant glare along Monument Road, which made it obvious that there should be a buffer installed here, and then that reduced the glare visible along Monument Road by adding that buffer.
Okay, moving on to the next section, you wrote Gruber Road proposed buffer. Are you sure that's Gruber Road pictured there?
No, I'm not. That's why I've got it in quotes here. This is just the way it was labeled in the original report. So that's why I've got it labeled that way. I'm not necessarily saying that is Gruber Road right there, but that's just the name that this piece of buffer was given in the first model.
Okay, I'd like to note for the record that is Klaus Road, not Gruber Road. And my second question on that is, why did you add the buffer that's circled in red for the Gruber Road section, as you call it?
Yeah, and I'm now just realizing an error here. I've circled too much. I should have only circled to about where my mouse is here. I didn't fully add this circled area. You can see the comparison. I should have only circled to that left 2/3 or so of that straight section. But I added this because, for a very similar reason of above, I added a new road to the analysis. And there was several roads here to the east of this area that I added. And they were experiencing some glare that when I looked at the results, I could see a lot of that glare would be blocked if there was a buffer here. So I proposed putting a buffer here and confirmed that, in fact, yeah, it did reduce the glare visible on some of those roads to the east.
Okay, moving on to the last section that's labeled Old Route 22 proposed buffer, where you circled the part in red. Is that Old 22?
No, I think Route 22 may be here north of this area, but for the same purpose, this is the name that this obstruction was labeled in the original report in Forge Solar, so that's why I'm using that name.
Okay, so what is the road that is circled in red?
I'd have to refer back to the map to tell you for sure. Do you want me to do that?
Yes, please.
Where are we? This is, yeah. Oh, let me go to the different map with the road names. Looks like that would be Gruber Road, I think. At least that's what was modeled as Gruber Road in the model. Sometimes the roads will change at an intersection, but I believe that's Gruber Road through there.
Okay, thank you. And then moving on to PDF page 35, which was labeled also as Forge Solar page 13.
Okay.
Scrolling down to the bottom section there that says Jaeger Road. The part that's blue that you've highlighted, is that all of Jaeger Road that you modeled?
That was all that I modeled, yes.
Are there any other roads that are highlighted in blue?
Sorry, any other roads that are not highlighted in blue?
Any other roads that are highlighted in blue besides Jaeger Road?
You're referring just to what's on the screen right now?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know. I've labeled this road that you see here as Jaeger Road. I guess maybe you're suggesting some part of this is named something different. I'm not sure about that.
I'd like to make a note for the record that the half part of the map to the left, where those three houses are, that is Hilltop Road, not Jaeger Road. All right, for Blyle Road, why did you include points on Sunday Road when you ran the glare analysis for Blyle Road?
Maybe let me see what you're referring to. Do you know what page that's on where it shows the
It's on multiple
detail of
pages on your report. Yeah, like you can look at this one right here.
Yeah. I started with the same routes that the original report had used, and then I extended some of those routes. I don't believe that I extended this route from the original report, but I did recognize that there were some examples in the original report where the name of the road receptor might not only stay exactly on that road. Sometimes it would cross to a section of road, name something different.
So do you
And,
believe that what's pictured here is Blyle Road? That's highlighted in blue?
Yeah, that's how I've referred to it because that's how it was originally referred to. I believe at least some of it is Blyle Road. I don't know if all of that is named Blyle Road, and I would not be surprised if you said some portion of it was named something different. It kept the analysis simpler to do that in some cases versus, have twice as many roads modeled every time the road name changed. And that was staying consistent with the way the original analysis had addressed that.
Okay, my last two questions. Have you ever been driving and had sun glare come through your driver's side window ever?
Driving and have solar glare come in through my driver's side window?
Correct.
Sure, yes.
When you've had that happen, have you ever had trouble seeing at an intersection that you wanted to either go straight or turn at?
This is very similar to what Mr. Paul raised.
Yeah, I think we've covered this territory already.
Okay. My last question is, which is more flammable, the foam insulation you mentioned on top of a roof or a field of grass that has solar panels on both the roof and the grass? Which is more flammable, the roof or the grass, if there were to be a fire?
Yeah, the roof, particularly in terms of how much fuel is there, just how much energy is in the fuel. The grass may catch on fire easy, but there's not much fuel there to burn. It burns out quickly and not very hot.
All right, that's all I
compared to
had.
the foam.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay. So, at this point, I think we're going to.
Did everybody ask if this was
Cross-examination is done, but once we do redirect, then I have to do recross. So I think at this point, we're going to adjourn until May 29th.
redirect very simple.
It's 9:40. I'm not.